What's so awful, I think, about the Keir Starmer Mandelson saga is the fact that there are so many more serious things going on. The fact that Starmer is under pressure and possibly going to resign, that there are conversations about his resignation, indeed that the first Labour MP has openly asked him to resign. I think that's Jonathan Brash, a Red Wall Labour MP for Hartlepool, who was quite clear about it and feels that Starmer's resignation is inevitable. The point is that there are other stories going on in the world today which sort of ring as more important. They are life-threatening. Like, for example, the astonishing story that Iran has said that it's going to be it's going to be kind and not execute women who were arrested for protesting. So the executions are going to be gender-based. It's repulsive. The whole idea of the Iranian execution regime is repulsive. And we should be focusing on that sort of story, and instead we're focusing on this sort of tittle-tattle. And I think in many ways Starmer should be big enough to simply end this and bow out with as much grace as he can possibly muster. There isn't anybody immediately to hand to replace him. I think Starmer and quite a large proportion of the Labour Party is worried about an Angela Rayner premiership. Wes Streeting is keeping very quiet. And Starmer's appearance today at pmqs was meant to steady the ship. In Starmer's eyes, he had a win yesterday because Ollie Robbins confirmed that he hadn't been told, that Starmer had not been told. But Ollie Robbins did more than that. Ollie Robbins confirmed this sort of patronage thing going on, which has been articulated quite well today, as I think John McDonnell articulated it, that Starmer got into Westminster without proper preparation, having got in there through the patronage of Morgan McSweeney and Mandelson. And they both expected jobs. And they both were incapable of doing the job properly. And until now, the defence from Downing Street has been narrow. Mandelson was the exception. Robbins failed. Process existed. Nothing else to see. But today, Starmer was forced into a reluctant admission when pressed on whether he knew about an attempt to secure a diplomatic role for his former communications chief, Matthew Doyle. He didn't deliver a clean denial. His answer was that Doyle had worked for him and others in public service, and that when people leave organisations, there are often conversations about other roles, and that nothing came of this. In other words, the conversation happened, the pressure was real enough to require explanation, and that matters because it shifts the argument from one disputed appointment to a pattern of patronage around number 10. And the first point is simple. This is no longer only a Mandelson story, it's now a Doyle story as well, and that is politically fatal because it destroys the line that Mandelson was a singular lapse of judgment. So Ollie Robbins told the Foreign Affairs Committee that there were several discussions initiated by number 10 about finding a head of mission opportunity for Matthew Doyle, who was then the Prime Minister's Director of Communications. Robbins also said he was under strict instruction not to discuss this with the then Foreign Secretary David Lammy, and that he found this uncomfortable. He went further. He explained that the Foreign Office was going through serious reform and job losses, and that he could not see how he was meant to explain to experienced diplomats why someone with fewer credentials should be moved into a major head of mission role, while they should lose their job. That is not a small procedural wrinkle. the head of the diplomatic service, saying in measured civil service language that he was being asked to do something he found hard to defend professionally and morally. And Starmer's answer was revealing, not because of what he denied, but because of what he accepted. He accepted the existence of the conversation while trying to empty it of significance. Nothing came of this is not a rebuttal, it's an admission wrapped in minimization, and the fact that a bad idea failed does not make the bad idea disappear. If a Prime Minister asks whether his spin doctor can be placed in a senior diplomatic posting during a period when the Foreign Office is cutting staff, the scandal is not removed by the fact that the plan didn't mature. The scandal lies in the instinct. The scandal lies in the culture. The scandal lies in the belief that public office is elastic enough to absorb personal disposal, like one of those wet wipes or something. Wipe it and it's gone. That is why this feels so corrosive, because the civil service is expected to be some sort of mop. Ambassadorships are not consolation prizes for exhausted aides. They are not soft landings for loyalists who need moving on. They are among the most sensitive instruments of state. An ambassador is not simply a polished messenger. He or she stands at the junction of diplomacy, intelligence, trade, alliance management, and national credibility. Robbins told the committee that Number 10's interest in Doyle was serious enough for the Number 10 private office to ask for the forward look of available head of mission's job. That means this was not idle gossip in a corridor. It had reached the level of official machinery. And the second point is that today's pmqs made Starmer look less like a leader in command and more like a man trapped inside his own formula. And his defence was again procedural. He claimed Robbins' evidence puts to bed the allegations against him, and he repeated that he should have been told about the security advice on Mandelson. Yet the problem for Starmer is that the public no longer hears due process as a shield of integrity. They hear it as a substitute for judgment. Today, when Ed Davey asked whether Starmer personally knew about the proposed appointment of Matthew Doyle, Starmer replied only that nothing came of that. He didn't say no. He didn't say Robbins was wrong. He didn't say the account was false. He offered the language of damage control, not innocence. And that failure matters because politics is often decided by the quality of the first instinct under pressure. The first instinct of a